This is CounselCast, part of the Legal Talk Network, and I'm your host, Karin Conroy. When you face a complex case outside your expertise, you bring in a co-counsel for next-level results. When you want to engage, expand, and elevate your firm, you bring in a marketing co-counsel. In this podcast, I bring in marketing experts who each answer one big question to help your firm achieve more. Here's today's guest.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on. My name's Adam Sinkus, digital marketer, managing partner of A Purpose Partnership, where we're helping companies, branding, content marketing, websites, SEO, and pretty much anything you can think of in marketing strategy. We have the team to help you out with that. Excited today to talk about websites, though.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here, Adam. We are going to, I know we spent a lot of time recently talking about kind of theory and all of that other stuff, but today we're going to dig into more tactics, like we were talking about before we started recording. And we really are going to talk about leads, because that's everybody's big $1 million question, right? And so the topic of the show is how to get more leads from your website. So we're going to not just talk about leads in general, because there are a lot of other ways other than your online presence to get leads, obviously. And I just real quick want to reinforce this idea that marketing is not your entire, online is not your entire marketing strategy. You should be doing a lot of offline traditional stuff like networking, going to events, all that other stuff that we've all been doing forever. So anyways, that little caveat sort of set aside, but we are going to specifically talk about websites. So thanks for being here. This is going to be a good conversation. I love kind of digging into like the nitty gritty of websites.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, it's so interesting because people think like I put my website up there and I listed it on Google and now I can set it, forget it, and I can go do all the other stuff. And the reality is, just like everything we do in marketing, it requires constant attention. And,
let me dig into that for a minute, because I literally had a client who we did their site 2 or 3 years ago, and there was some update, something happened, and her husband is their IT person, and he emailed me and he said, I don't even understand how this happens. Once you put a website up, shouldn't it just be there forever? So, you and I are laughing, but if you're not a website person, that's a legitimate question.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like, I feel like it's kind of like driving a car. Like, I just want my car to work. This idea that I could be at a stoplight and my transmission could fall out, that is not okay with me. I just want it to do its thing. So let's answer that first. I'm going to kind of tee you up for that one. Why is that not the case?
Well, so there's a couple things at play, right? So I always tell people Google is like your favorite toddler. Yeah. They like shiny new things to look at and see and experience all the time. Yeah. And so when you set it and forget it with your website, Google sets it and forgets it as well.
Yes, especially the forgetting part.
Especially the forgetting part.
Yeah.
The other piece is, there's constant security updates. Most people are hosting websites on WordPress or building them on WordPress. And there are constant updates that are for security, that are for functionality, that also help your site run faster as well. And so we have to actually go in and address that. And the reality is, as much as we like to say that all those updates happen perfectly, sometimes they don't.
They don't. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And so you have to be on top of that to make sure that functionality of your site remains as you expect it to be.
Yes. I was going to add that the analogy I usually use, because people are familiar with it, is it's like the apps on your phone. And I think we've all gone through the history of having a phone where, there's an update and then you don't do it and all of a sudden that app is not working right. It's the same idea. There's
Absolutely.
Different reasons for those updates. It could be security. It could be a bug. It could be whatever. But if you don't update those, they're going to break. And then sometimes even when you do update it, you're going to have a problem. There's going to be something that doesn't quite cooperate with another thing, and you have to fix it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And then the last piece that I think we often forget about is content. right? Your content
Yes.
can't be stagnant on your website. It should constantly be changing, morphing. You should be adding things to it as time goes on, and that's a really, really big piece of, we talked about Google being the toddler that it is and liking shiny new things. That's a big piece of that.
Yeah. Okay. So the website needs to be updated. You need to be kind of in there doing things, keeping it, healthy and functioning and doing all that other stuff. But let's assume that we're doing that and we've got somebody that's helping us to do that. So now we've got this website, but it's just kind of sitting there. Let's pretend we just launched the site in the last month or two. What's the first thing that you would recommend to your clients so that they can improve the likelihood of getting a lead from that website?
So number one is get your Google business profile updated. Yes. And representative of the same information that's on your website.
Yeah.
Get your Bing business profile updated the same way, and get all of your socials updated. Absolutely.
Why are you adding Bing in there? I feel like that's kind of a unique little added bonus kind of tip or trick there. Why did you mention Bing?
Because it's all about directories, right?
Okay.
Google is looking for websites that are up to date and credible.
Yeah.
The more places you are listed as a business, the more credible Google sees you.
Yeah.
Especially when everything like phone numbers and addresses and services and all that stuff match.
Yep.
And Bing is considered a high authority directory. So Therefore it gets bigger weight than, say, your local Chamber of Commerce directory.
Okay. All right. So it's just a good place to be listed because it gives you a little more validation.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
You don't have to go in and like update it like crazy. Most of my clients, we get it set up and we check it like once every 6 months and make sure everything is still relevant and the phone numbers are correct and keep it moving. But we don't do a whole lot with it. It's just being listed there is important.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. All right. So number one, get your Google business profile up and running. Get that lined up with the same things you're saying on your website. What's some other things people should be doing from the get-go to focus on the potential for leads?
Yeah, absolutely. So creating clear calls to action throughout your website.
Okay. Let's slow that one down for a moment because you and I talk about that every day, I'm sure, but it is not happening on a lot of attorney sites. And I will say, because oftentimes it's because people don't want to come across as salesy or whatever. But let's talk about what that is, number one, and then the different kinds of calls to action.
Absolutely, yeah. So first of all, call to action simply means I'm asking you as a visitor to my website or my social or wherever to do something, to take an action.
Yeah.
That's going to provide me into a funnel, that's going to provide me an opportunity to contact you directly. And, you're right. You mentioned a lot of times people look at that and go, well, that's really salesy. Well, it doesn't have to be salesy.
Yeah. Give me some examples.
Yeah, so like 70% of the calls to action that I use on a lot of websites that I develop come down to leading into funnels. So let's give something away for free, a free guide, a free 1-page, a free 15-page ebook on fill in the blank, right?
Right.
That gets them into your email list. And then from your email list, now you've got an engaged audience that you can then sell to.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Give me another example if they don't want to do an email list.
Yeah, absolutely. So set up a free consultation. I like that one, especially
that's pretty popular with most lawyers too. It's like either a free consultation or you can take the word free out if that doesn't work for what how you've got your firm set up. But yeah, I see that all the time. Contact us for a consultation. And then that's either going to go into like your calendar link or maybe it just links over to your contact page.
Absolutely. Yep. Either way works. I think, if you have the availability, running it to a calendar page makes it more concrete for people.
Yeah.
You can also, people are also a lot more giving of information, like phone numbers and email addresses when they know that I'm giving this so that I can set an appointment.
Yeah.
As well.
That makes sense as opposed to the email list that you were talking about earlier where they're like, am I just going to get a bunch of spam? if it's a really good giveaway, if you've got a really good freebie that people are asking about all the time, and you've really honed it down, then that's one thing. But a lot of people are kind of hesitant about handing out their email. So I think that's a good point to provide that calendar as the other option if they're like, I just really need a phone call. I need to set this up with you.
Absolutely. I was going to say, and the way to build that into your schedule is just plan like an hour or 2 hours a day where you could have, so to speak, office hours, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And that makes it a little more manageable. So you're not like opening up like all day. You're just opening up like, I'm available on Mondays and Wednesdays from 2 to 4.
Yeah, exactly. So another thing I talk about a lot that I feel is not talked about a lot is secondary calls to action. So
Yes.
let's assume that you're a divorce lawyer and people are coming to your site and they are just thinking about it. And that divorce may not be happening today. That may be happening 6 months from now or somewhere in the future. This is where that initial call to action, that schedule a consultation, they're not ready for that. They don't want to do that today. So then what? So then, how do you kind of plan for that and make sure that you can kind of set up a system where you're kind of staying in touch with that lead? So what's your recommendation for that?
Yeah. So number one is, how can we get them to engage in a newsletter around something that they care about, right? So in this case, how can we get them engaged in a newsletter that talks about divorce and what to do during, before, after, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Number two is, find ways where you can give them, where you can offer them a free guide towards that. And we talked about that. Yep. And then last is having a blog on your site and creating articles that are relevant to that topic with that kind of secondary. It's not really a pitch of, come buy my services, right? But it's, we solve for this, we're the experts in this.
That's a really important point, too, that you're not pitching your services. You're not coming across too salesy. It's not like the used car salesman, are you ready to buy? You ready to buy? You ready to buy? It's the other really high quality salespeople that we've all kind of come across in certain kind of situations where it's like you feel comfortable. You don't feel that like, oh, please just get away from me feeling. You just feel like, okay, they really understand. And they also understand that this isn't probably going to happen today, but I want to keep in touch and all of that stuff. So it's really important to recognize that people are at kind of different places in the life of their relationship with your firm. And if you're missing out on that secondary call to action, you're probably missing a majority of your leads because most people aren't going to be ready today.
Yeah, it's the fallacy that if I get them there, they're just going to click on my services and buy it, right?
Right.
And the reality is that most people take 7 to 10 touches before they actually make a purchasing decision. So that means that you need to get them there at least 6 more times before they're going to buy from you. And so, we have to create opportunities to do that, to get them back.
So what other kinds of things, somewhat related to the website, but do you also recommend doing things like retargeting ads where, okay, they've come to your website and but now they're over, and everybody's seen this. You've gone to a website, then now you're on Facebook, and you're seeing ads for that exact shoe that you were just looking at. Do you recommend stuff like that?
I do. I think there's 2 ways to look at it, right? So number one is retargeting ads, and I think that's really, really powerful because you have somebody that's been to your website or somebody that fits a persona that's been to your website.
Yeah.
And so they automatically tend to be a higher engaged potential lead at that point. The other one is lookalike audiences. And that's
a good one.
That's kind of another strategy off of retargeting.
So describe what that is, because I would bet most people don't even know what that is.
So the concept of a lookalike audience is you take your audience and stand in front of a mirror. And it's the what you see in the mirror is that lookalike audience, right? It's all the people that share the same characteristics, the same demographics, the same web habits that your current audience carries. And so it creates an entirely new audience for you, but it's built on what you know is actually already participating in your content.
Yeah. And so where do you, I already know the answer to this, but I'm just going to cue you up on. So where do you see these and how do you do that?
So most commonly on the social networks is where we see these. We're teeing them up through Facebook ads, through LinkedIn ads are probably the most effective way to build those lookalike audiences. But it's a super, super powerful tool.
It's amazing. And it's kind of, it's been around for a while. So it's kind of an AI thing before AI was a thing. But basically you're going into whatever social media platform you want to do ads on. Facebook/Instagram or LinkedIn are probably the two most common where our clients are doing that. And you create a campaign and then it gives you the option for, do you want to also create a lookalike campaign to this first campaign? So it's basically like, okay, we've got all this information from all of these people in this first group that took, a significant amount of work because they had to go to your website, they had to do a thing, they had to click at least once, and then they had to also be cross-referenced over here into Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, wherever you're doing this thing. And now we're going to go find other people just like that. And it's like, yes, please, like, go do that work for me. That's
Absolutely.
It's a really, like you said, it's a really powerful way to just exponentially expand out your audience for your ads. So that's a great suggestion as well. Okay, anything else coming back to the website in general in terms of leads that you think people might not be thinking about?
Yeah, so my buddy Jay Baer, he preaches help, not hype.
Yeah.
Right. And I absolutely, I love this philosophy, but it's the simple philosophy that everything we put out into the world should be about helping our target audience.
Yeah.
Not hyping who we are and what we do.
Oh my gosh. So it is time for the book review. Now, suddenly. So I just want to mention that if you haven't already seen, we have a library of all of the books that our guests have recommended on the website. And it's a really good resource for good book reviews, good things that the guests are only allowed to do one book, so they got to pick a good one. So go and check those books out. And then they cross-reference the show as well, so you can kind of see why that's a good book, how that ties into what we were talking about. So you started mentioning Jay Baer. What's the book that you're going to recommend and that we're going to add to the library?
Yeah, it's Utility. It's why smart marketing is about help, not hype. And
okay.
It really is. It's about building the foundations of how do we help our audiences be better instead of just talking about ourselves, because, let's be honest, that's the sleazy used car salesman. Yeah. I'm going to sell you the greatest car in the world. I have it for you, right? Yeah. And everybody goes, no, you don't.
Yeah.
Right.
And not only that, but like, I don't really like you now, and I don't really want to work with you because you're not talking to me about what I need.
Exactly. So, so he builds through a couple of different awareness strategies in the book. He talks about the 3 facts of utility marketing, which is self-serve information. How do I go help myself as a consumer?
Yeah.
How are you as a business being radically transparent? And then how is this relevant to me now? Me, the seller, or me, the consumer? Me, the consumer.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I think this is I talk about this, I feel like every day, but a lot of firms get this wrong. And they lead, if you picture the front of a website, the very front page and the main header section and that big first impression message, a lot of firms are leading about themselves. And it's not at all about how they can solve problems. It's not about that potential client. It's about, we're such and such law firm in such and such city. And they're just going to click right on. I mean, it just doesn't work. And I think this is a perfect tie into this idea of leads, because it seems sort of like a, multi-step process. But if your message doesn't resonate, forget everything else. If you've spent all this money on SEO and retargeting ads and, all of this other stuff, and they come to your website and it's like wah, wah, forget it. Like, that was such a waste. So it's like you have the worst foundation, but you're kind of spinning your wheels with all of these other things. And this is when firms come to me and say, oh, that stuff doesn't work. And it's like, yes, it does. It does if you do it right. Yeah. So talk more about, like, that sounds like a great book. I also just wanted to add, we'll obviously link to the book and add the kind of comments about the book on the show notes as well, so that people can get that. But so talk about why that's important in terms of, like, the focusing on the visitor in terms of leads.
Yeah, so you talked about, I'm gonna circumvent this. I'm gonna start with the head of the web page, right? When you first come to it. This is, I think, the number one miss that most web pages have is they talk about themselves. As a consumer, what I want to see in that first piece of the web page, I've got about 3 seconds to make a snap decision whether I'm going to read further or not. I want to see how you solve my problem.
Yeah.
Why do I care to read more?
Yep.
Right? It is really what it comes down to. And so that's where we have to step back as business leaders, as business owners. We have to go, okay, it's not about me.
Yeah.
It's about them.
Right.
And so, we have to always take our business owner hat off and put our consumer hat on and go, if I'm the average consumer of my product, one, how much do I know about this? In the case of legal and law firms, I'm going to say the average consumer is very, very basic in knowledge of this. And so,
and that's the whole reason they're seeking you out, because they're assuming you're going to fill in that gap where they don't need to go to law school to solve their problem. That's why you did that.
Exactly. So, it's how do I make it so that somebody with a basic knowledge can come in and understand how I'm going to be able to solve their problem?
Yeah.
Number two, is that problem relevant? So often I see, like, I had a conversation about a week ago with one of my clients. He's like, yeah, I'm so excited. I'm ranking number 1 for my company name. I'm like, great.
I should hope so.
Awesome. Yeah. That's awesome.
Right. Is that what people are searching for?
That was my next question. I said, do you know if anybody's searching for that besides you and your mom?
And your mom? Yes, exactly.
And he kind of got wide-eyed, and then the light bulb turned on, and he's like, "Oh, I get it now."
Oh,
right?
Whoops. I spent a lot of time on that. But once again, I feel like the problem that we're sort of circling around and is ego. That is such an ego exercise. Like, I want to see my own name when I Google it, and it's like, why? Does that have anything to do with your customer or your client? No. Then you got to set that aside, because this is not what this is about. And this is not how you're going to make money or get leads.
Absolutely. I think the other thing that we forget about, and I see this in so many of the we can get you these rankings in 30 days, and we can get you X amount of leads in the next 30 days. Yeah. Pitches. What people forget about is, if we lead with value, build a foundation around our consumer, then it's not about today's leads. We might have a few less leads today, but 6 months down the road, it's going to be a machine. It's just going to keep regenerating new leads, more leads.
Right. Well, and the other thing is that you don't want just a pile of leads, because so many of those, if you do kind of go through your spam folder and find some of those messages, so many are going to be garbage. And so then that alone is a project to just filter through and find if there is anything sort of okay that you might want to follow up on. But when you change your messaging and you align, everything on your website with your brand and your position and what those leads are looking for, then all of a sudden the quality of the leads goes way up as well. Yeah. because you can tell right away. Like, this is the person that saw that message, that it resonated. And I can tell right away myself, even when I get on a sales call for myself, when this is going to be, I've been doing this long enough, I can filter out and say, okay, this is going to be a good one, or this is not. Like, we are going to cut this short. I am not going to sit on this call for very long. And so, we all have those kind of definitions of what makes a good client and everything. And if you don't, you should. And so you should be able to tell right away when they come in, oh, okay, this looks legitimate and this looks like a quality lead that probably spent some time on the site and it resonated with them.
Absolutely. Speaking of spending time on the site, I think that's something that's really interesting, because I've done a lot of research on user experience with websites, right?
Yeah, that really ties into the leads and the lead quality if they're spending time on the website, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that ties into it is how easy is it for me to go from the page that I enter to the page that I turn into a customer.
Oh, that's awesome. There used to be, ages and ages ago, Seth Godin used to say that they should be able to get everywhere they need to go in 3 clicks.
Yeah.
And I think that's, that varies now because you really want them to kind of spend some time over here and then do this and do the other thing. But nothing should be complicated. It shouldn't be hard to find what they're looking for. So what were you going to say about kind of the time on the site and how that relates to what we're talking about?
Yeah. So, one of the things that as they move through the site, as they take their clicks, one, we have to make sure that those clicks are intentional, right? So those calls to action from the homepage to the content that we want them to go see to the buying, to eventually that buying cycle, have to be very, very intentional. Number 2 is we don't want to have everything at the top of the page specifically where they can just, click and not actually read down the page a little bit, right?
Right.
Menu up at the top, great, but let's have some buttons that carry them into blogs. Thinking about your blogs, right? How can I link one blog to another blog and keep them reading further?
Yeah.
It's all these things that we can craft an intentional customer path. So in the case of, we were talking about the person that's looking into divorce, right?
Yeah.
So if I can craft this experience where they hit the homepage, they're like, yeah, I want to read more. Thinking about a divorce, call to action, moves them to a blog about divorce. And this is, so now they start reading through, the top 5 things I need to do if I'm considering divorce, right?
Yeah.
And within that, now we've got a couple of links in that blog that carry them to other content. But at the bottom of that blog, we also have an opportunity for them to go schedule a consultation or schedule,
some action.
Take some action, right?
Yeah.
What we've done is we've created this path where every blog that they touch should have that call to action to get them to take some action on it. But we've also created the opportunity where they could potentially spend 5, 7, 10 minutes on our site reading information, and immediately we go from, just another Google site that they found in their search results to, oh, these people really know what they're talking about, and they're going to take care of me.
Yes, they're going to take care of me, and they get me too because they're answering these questions I didn't even think about. The way I like to think about it is we travel quite a bit, and I know I'm on a great site when I have like 5 tabs open. So if I'm on a site that's talking about, let's say I'm on a travel site that's talking about a certain city and I'm trying to decide on a hotel to stay at. And so I'm reading through an article and like I start opening all their links from that article and I'm like so anytime, imagine that kind of content where you're providing all these resources, all this information, and you're just trying to keep them around, but it's got to be good stuff. Like they're not going to stick around if you're just kind of saying the same thing that's very obvious that they could Google, that anybody else is saying. You want to give them links or information or details that they hadn't even thought about. And if you can get them to kind of open multiple tabs in their browser, then you're solid. Then you've done a great job. So kind of think about it like that.
Yeah, the other thing that you've got to think about is how you organize the information too, right? Because, let's be honest, with Google, virtually every piece of information in the world is available. And so if you search deep enough, you'll find it all, right?
Sure.
But how you present and build the information and create that, how somebody experiences the information is just as critical as the quality of content.
Well, exactly. And what you were saying about Google having all the information, but it's like, I don't want to go and find that. So if they have provided that information, they've done all the research and they present it in a really compelling, easy way to access that, then once again, you're just kind of being a resource, you're being helpful, and you're building that trust and likability and all of that stuff.
Absolutely.
So, Adam, what's one big takeaway that you'd like people to get from this show?
Gosh, we've talked about so many great things.
I know. I feel like there's a lot of really good takeaways. Like, I love these shows where it's just full of little tips and things where I imagine people like with a little notepad writing down, okay, we got to try this, we got to do this, we got to double check this, and this. What do you think?
No, I would say probably the biggest takeaway, and the one that we kind of kept going back to, is it's not about you as the business owner, it's about your consumer.
Yeah.
So number one, everything you do should be to serve your consumer. And as long as you're doing that, the rest of it will come. The leads will come, the traffic will come, everything that you're looking for from your website and your online presence will start to come forward.
Yeah, it's kind of the answer not everybody wants to hear, because everybody wants to say, the topic is how to get more leads. They want to hear that, there's like an AI that can do that for me, or I can just click a button somewhere that I've accidentally turned off, and then all of a sudden, or, there's some like golden ticket Willy Wonka type thing where all of a sudden it's just going to happen. But your clients are way smarter than that. And the good ones are going to be, kind of cynical maybe, or definitely they're analytical and they're going in and they want to know what's in it for them. And so if you lead with yourself and your ego, it's not going to happen. And so all of these other tactics that we're talking about, they don't matter. So I think that's really important. It's like, that's the solid foundation where you have to start.
Yeah. And the reality is, you don't build marketing for today.
Yeah.
You build marketing for 3 months from now.
At least.
So, and so the fallacy of, if I just go fix these 5 things on my website today, that might result in a few more leads today. What we've talked about today is building solid foundations that will help you long-term continue to build and grow leads.
Exactly. Oh, I think that's a perfect place to finish, because that's just like wrapped it all up in a little bow right there. That's it. That's, as much as we were talking about tactics and we said we weren't going to do theory and strategy, we are at the same time, because you can't do those without the strategy. Like, they go hand in hand. And if you don't do the strategy, your tactics are pointless. So before I kind of muddy the waters of everything you just said, I'm going to say that was a great show. Adam Sinkus is the managing partner of A Purpose Partnership. We will link to your website and all of your social media, as well as the book, which sounds like an amazing idea of where you can kind of stick your toe in the idea of focusing on your clients and how you solve those problems. And that book is going to help with that as well. So Adam Sinkus, thank you so much for being here. That was such a super helpful and useful conversation.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the CouncilCast podcast. Be sure to visit our website at council-cast.com for the resources mentioned on the episode and to give us your feedback. If you enjoyed this episode, I would appreciate if you could rate and review the podcast on Apple and subscribe to your favorite podcast platform. See you on the next one.